You cannot afford to miss this video if you are from the Caribbean. I have personally watched this video multiple times and I can assure you that you cannot miss this video for anything. This is a video from Mia Monttley, the Prime Minister for Barbados. So without much ado, let's listen to exactly what she had to say.
The time, who sees us and who hears us? We continue to be confronted by problems of blacklisting, which pale into insignificance when compared to climate change, but which destroy our financial sector. The illicit flow of weapons, such that the ease with which people can go into public spaces and shoot and kill others is now regarded as just another item on the news because we promote profit in the manufacture and trade of guns and weapons, of non-communicable diseases that strike down our people in the most insidious of ways because we allow diets that promote the prosperity of a few multinational corporations to become the norm of the day with the food that we eat and the lives that we live. And in the case within our own community, Belize and Guyana continue to face challenges to their territorial integrity. I suppose people feel that because we have talked so long about Belize and Guyana and Cuba, that we can continue to talk about climate change and these other things, and that it is okay for it to be another tick on a UN General Assembly speech. These are all threats to our stability, to the people's stability in our lands. But you know, since last we met, there are other instances and circumstances, not of our making, that may yet destabilize us. And we say it over and over, but we ask who is listening. And you know, we don't come with tales of woe only. The Caribbean has produced excellence. It really has. Nobel laureates, sportsmen who have excelled and are the best in the world of their type, artists, the best in the world of their type, leaders who have inspired previous generations and current generations. We don't come here as a proud people asking for handouts. We don't want and will not be mendicant. What we want, no, what we need is fiscal and policy space. Fiscal and policy space to achieve sustainable development, to be nimble, to adapt, and to innovate in ways that allow us to be true and faithful to the task of bringing prosperity to our people, or as in the theme of this General Assembly, to eradicate poverty, to educate our people, to include all such that there's not some outside and some inside. We want an international order equally that recognizes that there must be different policy prescriptions to suit the circumstances that we all have. And we can still be friends, small and large, north and south, Christian, Hindu, Muslim, all different races, all genders. An equitable and just international order that is truly built on the principles of justice and fairness for all and not just for some. A United Nations that recognizes that as 74 years old we must be able to have difficult conversations as mature people and solve them. Many in the developing world were persuaded or required to abandon policies that were designed for the majority of our population to be transformed. And those policies were fashioned to adopt a consensus that was settled in Washington, D.C. and named thereafter. And that ultimately, regrettably, was about the consolidation of wealth in the hands of a very few. That's why we have seen the growing inequality that we have seen in the world over the last few decades. That is why too many people over the world have become cynical about governments and about the benefits that they can bring to them. The fueling of the greed of a few threatens to undermine what little gains we have made since independence. And we judge ourselves harshly because independence is a recent phenomenon for us. Others who have taken 150 years to get where they have gotten are still stumbling and falling. And you want to judge those who have had less than 50 or 60 years to operate in a world that has not been made in their image and that does not reflect their interests. This is the fate, my friends, of simply too many. And Mr. President, despite our small sizes, the 14 countries of the Caribbean community have been able to play leadership roles of international import. I can't stand here today without talking about St. Vincent and the Grenadines, that has become the smallest nation of the world ever to be elected to the Security Council to sit on it. We are proud of them. In addition, and I want to speak to this, because when CARICOM was confronted with the unfolding situation in Venezuela, I accompanied the then chairman of CARICOM, the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, as well as the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, to meet in this building with the UN Secretary General in January of this year. And we met with many delegations, and some said we were wasting our time, and some said the time for talk was already over. And we said then, as we say almost 9 months later, the time for dialogue, the time for talk, my friends, can never be over in a world that wants peace and prosperity. We don't take sides, but what we know is that you cannot propel war over dialogue. The people of Venezuela must be allowed to decide their own future in accordance with the principles of the United Nations Charter. Principles of non-intervention, non-interference, prohibition of the threat or use of force, respect for the rule of law, human rights, and democracy. It is regrettable that other multilateral organizations have not followed their own charters. And that is what makes the actions of our Secretary General of the UN more laudable, for refusing to breach his own charter and take actions even though member states have hurled into the recognition of those unelected. Our Caribbean Sea must remain a zone of peace, and for that we shall fight. Mr. President, I speak plainly and without fear, because from independence, Barbados'S foreign policy has been premised on the simple principle of friends of all, satellites of none. Barbados, therefore, has always remained and will remain proud to have Cuba as a treasured friend.
This is the Prime Minister for Barbados. And Barbados is one of the 14 countries in the Caribbean. She is by the name Mia Monttley. So if you are from the Caribbean, I believe you may have seen her before and you know what she represents. She has been very pivotal in exposing the rot in these countries that has been perpetrated by some of the government officials in these countries. I personally enjoy listening to her interviews and her videos on social media. She is a woman of integrity. She always speaks the truth, and she is very fair and firm in her dealings. Whenever she talks or in an interview, you can sense her fairness and her truthfulness in whatever that she says over there. And she's very bold as well. She is able to speak to the matter just as it is. If this is your very first time of coming across this channel, just consider subscribing. Just click the subscribe button down there and click on the subscribe button and turn on the post notification as well. So let's continue. So there is a growing concern as to how the Caribbean is being managed by prime ministers in the Caribbean. And Mia Monttley, being the prime minister for Barbados, is exposing some of the rots that some officials are perpetuating in the Caribbean, and as to why the Caribbean is still lacking behind in terms of development. When you compare times at which the countries in Caribbean gained independence to some other countries, you could see that there is significant improvement or development going on in those other countries, whilst countries in the Caribbean are lacking behind. So she's charging her colleague prime ministers in order to get to work, eschew any form of corruption or illegal activities in order for the countries of the Caribbean to thrive so that the people can also have some benefit from the government. Just like Africa, there is a growing concern of corruption in the Caribbean. Government officials are engaging in some acts of corruption, which she points out. And she says nowadays, people all over the world have become cynical about governments in the sense that government officials nowadays think only about themselves and what they can keep for themselves in their own pocket at the expense of the citizenry who voted them into power. They always look for their personal interests, siphon money that is for the government into their own personal pockets and seek their own welfare and self-interest. So a lot of the citizenry or people in the country have become cynical and they don't even regard government officials to do anything beneficial. They don't expect anything beneficial from the government of the day. Politicians are now filled with greed and they exhibit greediness all over, thinking about their personal interests. But this woman is charging her colleague prime ministers in order to live up to the task and rise to the occasion in order for them to be able to bring some form of relief to the people, development to the people. She also stated that there is high taxes that politicians are imposing on the citizenry, and this does not foster development at all. Development does not thrive or come to bear when taxes are high. We need to reduce taxes in order for the citizenry to be able to grow, develop, and then be able to bring out high output. Taxing people is a lazy way of raising revenue in order to support the government. Let me know of what you think about her speech in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. Like the video, click the subscribe button down there. Click on the subscribe button. Click as well on the notification bell. And I'd like to see you in my next video.